Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar celebrating International Women's Day and meeting the brand new Motorsport UK Inclusion Ambassadors. This webinar is brought to you by Girls on Track UK, managed by Motorsport UK, and I am thrilled to have your company this evening as we hear more about the Inclusion Ambassadors who are committed to making motorsport more accessible, diverse and inclusive. My name is Isi Browning. I am a presenter and reporter within Motorsport. I cover various series, including single-seaters and GT racing. And I'm delighted to be joined by a fantastic and very talented panel here tonight, who you can hopefully already see on your screen. I'm sure they'll give us a wave. They are ready and waiting to answer your questions. So thank you very much for those of you who sent in your questions ahead of time. Joining me then are four fantastic women who, as I've already mentioned, are all Motorsport UK Inclusion Ambassadors and ready to chat to us about their roles within motorsport. I'm sure you will no doubt recognise them. Ladies, I'm going to start by allowing you to introduce yourself to the viewers because, of course, who better to talk about your roles than yourselves, the ladies who actually do the roles. So just a little bit about yourself, your role, and also potentially a bit about what it means to you to be a Motorsport UK Inclusion Ambassador. Nicki, you're first on my screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Well, at least it's a question I know the answer to. I can tell you that. Izzy, thank you so much for hosting this. And it's an absolute pleasure to be in a room full of like some of the best women in motorsport. So it really is a pleasure. We were saying earlier that we never actually get to be in the same room together because we're usually in different pit lanes working. So this is a wonderful event. And thank you so much for everyone joining. So my very quickly background is I fell in love with motorsport since I was a dot. Never in a million years envisaged working in the industry. It was very much a passion. It was a hobby. I watched it at the weekend and that's where it ended. But then one thing led to another. You know what happens. You sort of sniff out your passions. And I've been working as the pit lane reporter and now lead presenter of Formula E, the electric racing series. And we're in our 11th season, which makes me feel old, which has been wonderful, traveling around the world reporting on that. And more recently, I am now the lead commentator, which was a very terrifying experience stepping into that role for F1 Academy, which, as I'm sure you know, is the all-female series, which is now about to start its third season. And yeah, I think being in this role is a huge honor and privilege. And I hope I can play a small part because work has been done, but there is so much more that needs to be done. And we can see the progress that has been made and it does make a difference. But we're still at the early stages. And I think, you know, collectively, if we can all get on board and do our bit and help not just spread the word, but also, you know, campaign together and come up with ideas and work together, then it should make a difference. So the future will look very different in motorsport in years to come.
Great stuff. Also, Nicki, of course, you said that you're both a presenter and a commentator. So later on, we got a couple of questions about how you prepare for the weekend. So that will be interesting to kind of hear the differences.
Yeah, really know what I'm doing.
The differences between the two. Nathalie, we'll move on to you.
Hi, thanks for the intro and echo what Nicki said about it's fantastic to be in a room with some fantastic ladies, and thank you to Motorsport UK for hosting this webinar. So my name is Nathalie McGloin and I am the only female tetraplegic racing driver in the world. So I'll just give you a little bit of an education on what tetraplegic means because there's a lot of confusion around that. So I broke my neck in a car crash when I was 16 years old, which has resulted in me being paralysed from the chest down. And tetraplegic basically means paralysed affecting all four limbs. So I don't have full hand function. That's the difference between tetraplegic and paraplegic, which often gets misinterpreted. So I am in my 10th season racing, still racing a Porsche Cayman S, which is my original race car. I also run a charity for disabled drivers called Spinal Track, where we give people with physical disabilities their first opportunity at driving a track car around Silverstone GP circuit, which I absolutely love. And that was born out of basically when I started racing, a lot of people were messaging me and saying that they didn't know that it was possible for disabled people to be doing what I was doing. And they wanted to have a go at it. And basically, they were asking for track days, not a full-on race season. So my husband and I created something to give people like me that opportunity. And then fast forward to 2018, and I became the FIA Disability and Accessibility Commission President, which is a role I still hold today. So my commission is in charge of the global legislation around disabled people in motorsport. And that's not just drivers, that's anything that involves motorsport. If you are there with a disability, we represent you. I've also done some work for Motorsport UK. I am a disability consultant for Motorsport UK and a proud inclusion ambassador. I've been an ambassador for Girls on Track UK, which has now changed to an inclusion ambassador, which is really nice because it brings in all of the different areas of EDI, and obviously I fall into women and disability, so it's nice for me to be able to represent both sectors there. And yeah, really looking forward to this chat.
And back to racing very soon as well.
Yeah.
Jennie, on to you.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for hosting. So my name's Jennie Gow. I'm the F1 presenter and pit lane reporter for BBC Radio 5 Live and the BBC as a wider network now. And I've also done a lot of different things in pit lanes around the world, most notably, and I suppose recently, the Extreme E race series where I was lead commentator, and that was all about diversity. So it was the first real chance for me to be lead commentator alongside Andrew Coley, which was a fascinating experience and taught me so much about everything in life. So yeah, I was really privileged to be in that position. And yeah, I'm just getting ready for, someone told me the other day, my 15th season in F1, which is just scary. But I love the job. I've written a book about F1 recently as well. And I had a stroke 2 years ago, which affected my voice and my communication kind of area in my brain. So if I say the wrong words at the wrong times, you'll have to forgive me. And I've not been drinking, I promise. I just slur a little bit as it gets into the evening. And 6:40 for me is quite late. So yeah, bear with. But it's a pleasure to meet you all. And I'm proud to be on this panel with all these lovely ladies.
15 years in F1, which means that you've got a lot to tell us tonight. Finally, last but not least, Ariana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm echoing everything that the other ladies have said about being here. I am a presenter working in Formula One at the moment. I've been doing it not as long as some of the more seasoned professionals on the panel. This is I think I'm going into my 5th season now, but I host the fan forums at F1 races, which is where we interview all the drivers on stage. And then I also work for Channel 4 as their reporter, and I do a little bit of F1 TV and other bits and bobs throughout the year. And being an inclusion ambassador is so special to me because I used to be a Girls on Track UK member. That's how I got into this job, from coming to an event at the Williams factory, which is where I met my amazing friend Steph, who now works in Formula E. And yeah, that's kind of where this whole journey started for me. So it is so close to my heart, and very strange to be on this side of the panel because I was doing what Isi was doing not that many years ago. So yeah, it's really special to me, and I can't wait to chat with you all today.
Oh, fantastic. Right. We're going to dive straight into the questions then. I guess the best place to start would be at the beginning. Nicki, you kind of touched on it already about how you kind of loved motorsport from the very beginning. But the first question we got was there a specific moment when you realized that motorsport was your passion, or maybe that you wanted to turn it into a job? Nicki, I'm going to come to you, because if I'm right, your background is in science. Is that correct?
I had a very different plan. I kind of left university all guns blazing. I did biological sciences. I was in Bristol, the National History Unit that does all the BBC documentaries, loads of production companies there. I was like, that's where I'm going to go. That's what I'm going to work in. Wildlife, TV, cool. And then ended up doing a show on sustainability, and met Renault, who told, well, and then we did a feature on electric cars and met Renault, who told us about Formula E. And my sort of instant reaction, being a purist petrol head, was, doesn't sound so good. Electric cars, really? Good luck, bye. And then that was that. And I actually then sort of went home and thought about it and was like, well, do you know what? I can talk about battery technology. I can, I have a passion for sustainability. And, they were really flying the flag at that time when it came to, reducing pollution and improving air quality in cities. And obviously I was like, oh, actually, and I can talk about motorsport because I love racing. So I thought, oh, well, maybe there's an opportunity here. And fortunately, I had just done through I watched the Goodwood program, and was like, oh, God, I'd love to work on that, and managed to get a job working for the digital team, and had just literally contacted them out of nowhere. Which is why it is so important, if you want to do something, just contact someone. They don't put it up on a jobs board. Just flag it to someone that you want to do something, and you never know. Also, bearing in mind, it wasn't like the only thing and the only job that I emailed about to try and get the opportunity to work on. There were many things, but I just happened to get this job at Goodwood, had worked at, I think, Members Meeting and Festival of Speed. So I'd had a little bit of motorsport on my CV, but really nothing. But it was the fact that I could sort of talk about the science of the electric car that is the reason that I ended up getting the job with Formula E. And then it kind of, the rest is history, as they say. Obviously, once I got the bug, and that opened up so many more opportunities. And I sort of closed the door on being a sort of wildlife documentary maker, which is kind of sad. But also, I'm very happy for the opportunities that I have had. And, I don't really feel like I have worked a day since then making that decision. It's just a joy to have this kind of career. So, but on that, if we're talking mainly about how to get into it, it's very much, if you see something that you want to do, then don't be too afraid to try and find out. For TV, it's obviously finding out the production company and who the exec producer is. And more often, it's so easy now with like LinkedIn, you can literally find these people. When we first started out, it was virtually impossible sometimes to get the names. The only way you could get the name was watching the credits of a TV show. But now everything is a bit more accessible. So there isn't really any excuse. If you want to do something, then just try and back yourself and reach out to someone. And you never know, it might be a no, but you've got to start somewhere.
So maybe not what you intended to do, but as you said, never looked back. Ariana, I'm going to come to you next, because I believe you have a similar story, kind of didn't initially go into this career.
Yeah, I am similar to Nicki, come from a completely different background. I studied economics at university, which I adored and I still do adore, and never really considered stepping into this world. I was a fan of motorsport from when I was very young, and I'd been interested in presenting. I'd done my work experience at Channel 4 when I was at school, but it wasn't really something I ever tied together in my brain. And then after a gap year and then getting a job as a management consultant, which I actually did stick out for 4 years, to be fair. So I did do like a long stint there. I just decided it wasn't going to work. I'm someone that very much can't do things that I don't want to do. Like I can't, if I really know something's not right for me, then I've got to make a change. And I got to that point in that job where I was like, this isn't what I can do for for the next 10, 20, however many years. So yeah, I decided it was time to make a change. And as I said, I came to a Girls on Track UK event. I started making my own content on Instagram, which was very basic. I always say it's not like the content we see today. It was literally me against a plain wall, sometimes this wall right here, just talking to camera as a way to sort of build an unofficial show reel and demonstrate myself speaking to camera. And then I started a podcast with my friend Steph about diversity in motorsport, which is something that's really important to me. And yeah, then the videos got noticed by the director of broadcasting at F1, and that's kind of where I then got my foot in into the F1 world. And it wasn't immediate. It still took quite a few months to actually get to the racetrack. But yeah, Austria 2021 was my first ever race working, and that was also the first ever time I'd presented anything in person, because everything I'd done had been virtual because of COVID. So it was quite a steep learning curve. Yeah, it sounds very like fun, cool, you went straight into F1. It's not something I actually would recommend. So I wouldn't try to follow too hard on that. I think it's better to work your way up and really craft your skills, because if you start, you know, in F1, in FE at the top of the ladder, the learning curve is steep. It's very steep, but I've loved every second of it still.
So kind of full circle a little bit then, if you did your work experience at Channel 4 to now be working for them as well.
Yeah, it's very strange, very surreal. I never thought that would have been the case when I did my working experience.
Yeah, that's very cool. Nathalie, how about you? When did you catch the motorsport bug?
So my journey in was slightly unconventional. So I started through track days, but I developed a passion for cars when I got my driving license, because cars for me were just freedom. Because I obviously I use a wheelchair, and like public transport isn't as accessible as it should be. When I was at university, I felt a bit that I was missing out on something that my friends could do quite freely. So when I passed my driving test, suddenly I was the one with the car. I was the one that could dictate where we went. And I then quickly developed a passion for fast cars. So I bought a John Cooper Mini, a John Cooper Works Mini. I think it was 2003, which isn't a hugely fast car, but it was for a new driver. And that then developed on to kind of faster cars. And I was actually involved in another sport called wheelchair rugby. And when I was at a tournament in Toulouse, I met another wheelchair rugby athlete from the UK who also had a passion for cars, and told me that his was faster than mine. And I wasn't having any of that. So he then said, well, why don't we go on a track day and we can see who's right? So I went on my first track day with him, and I just fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with the fact that I could do something in the same way and at the same time as non-disabled people. So coming from kind of a disabled sport where we were all the same, and I got that sense of normality in the fact that I wasn't different because we were all disabled, going into motorsport or track days with a disability and being female, where it's, you know, a predominantly white, able-bodied male sport, I just had a kind of different experience that I wasn't that different, because everyone was interested in the way that I controlled the car with the hand controls, but I wasn't. We were all doing the same thing, so I wasn't, you know, like different as in I've experienced kind of being a disabled person in an able-bodied world, kind of at university and coming out of rehab. It was a different kind of different, if that makes sense. So I loved the speed, I loved the adrenaline, and I just started doing track days for fun. And then 6 years later, I just had a thought, why don't I see if I can get my racing license? I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to hang it on the wall with my university degree. And before I knew it, I'd bought a car and I'd entered into a championship, and suddenly I was going racing. So yeah, not a conventional route in, but maybe maybe more conventional for kind of club racers, because a lot of club racers do get into motorsport through track days. But yeah, for me, it was kind of the freedom that the car gave me on the road when I first passed my test is the freedom that I feel on a racetrack, because I leave my wheelchair in the pits and I'm just the same as everyone else, and all that matters is who crosses the finish line first. So yeah, that was my unconventional routine.
I love how it just slowly escalated from like, oh, I'm not going to race, to now I'm racing.
Very much so.
Jennie, finally coming to you.
So I was always a bit of a boy racer, and I love fast cars. I didn't have pictures of like pop stars on my wall. I had Lamborghinis and Ferraris on my wall. So I was always a bit different from the girls in my school, and I was a bit of a tomboy. So when I first got my car, which I loved, the whole experience of driving for me was amazing. As you say, Nathalie, so freeing. And yeah, I fell in love with anything to do with cars at that point. But I'd always been interested in motorsport, rallying, F1. I remember when I was little watching rallying, and there were females rallying, and you were like, oh, this is really cool. And it seems like in some ways we've taken a step back with our diversity quota. And actually, when it comes to females, actually at really high levels, whether it's rally, whether it's F1, whether it's Formula E, where are the girls? I don't understand. There were girls when I was growing up, and now there aren't. But we're getting there. Anyway, I digress. So I did not end up doing a degree. And I don't think actually all the time a degree is necessary if you want to get into motorsport and presenting and reporting. It was very useful to have done a journalism course, I have to say, because you learn all about the legal side of things, how to do shorthand, which is very outdated, but actually as a journalist, it's a really useful skill. So I did all of that. I got some work experience at the BBC. And that was the last time I considered doing anything else other than just working in sport. I've loved it every step of the way. And very unlike Ariana, I've done everything before getting to F1. And I mean everything, it feels like. It's taken forever, but I loved that journey. And what I would say is, like Ariana, don't rush it. We've all learned from our experiences, but actually all those mistakes that you make along the way, make them away from F1 or Formula E or the elite sport that you want to go into, and learn so that when you do get that chance, you don't blow it and you're prepared. And you have to work twice as hard as most other people in that pit lane because you're female. So do that work. Be diligent, and at the end of it, you will get rewarded with the job that you are desperate to have because you put that hard work in.
Yeah, I mean, I jump in on this as well because I couldn't agree more, Jennie. It's like when I got the full lead role at Formula E this year, so it's taken that long, yay. And obviously everyone's like, oh, it should have happened sooner. It should have happened sooner. Maybe a year or two before, it would have been really nice too. But if I'd got that 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been very good. Like, you know, the skill of, for example, you know, counts. You know, you've got to end when someone's shouting at you. You've got someone counting down to 10 or down to 0. You've got someone else shouting, oh, you're supposed to throw to another VT. You've got the person who's finishing the interview and I'm like, I've got to say something in the next 5 seconds to throw to something, and you're still talking and someone's shouting. Me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been very good at that. And I would have stepped into that role as lead and everyone would have gone, oh, we've made the wrong choice here. Whereas I've had that time to learn over the years, and now I feel so confident doing it. And we've had the best 3 shows ever. Like the board, the season, everyone has just loved the show. But if I'd stepped into it too much earlier, I don't think that would have been the case. So yeah, I completely agree. You know, cut your teeth. Don't suddenly go, oh, aim up here. And if you're not there at the beginning, be disappointed by that. It's so important. It's a journey you've got to go on to finally get to that point.
That kind of brings us on really nicely to one of the questions that we had, which is if you could change anything about the start of your motorsport career, or if there was anything that you kind of learned at the very start that you would maybe want other people to know, what would it be? Jennie, I'll come to you first.
I think I would say do your homework. So I brought with me tonight. I say brought with me. I'm in my study. It was not far to go. But I bought my book. So I do a book every year that gives me all the facts that I need and will need to lay my hands on really quickly as a pit lane reporter. So I don't know how great you'll be able to see this, but this is basically who got where last season, all of the drivers, all of the races. And I can flick through and all of the races are in there, what happened, tyres, stops, all sorts of things. And then if I flick to the end, this is the really fun one, all the points for the entire season and where people were, how they accelerated up and down. And this is my Bible. So going into a weekend, I do all my homework. I learn about the track, the drivers, what news is relevant to the weekends. I prep as hard as I can so that I don't get caught out. And I would just say all the way up, learn as much as you possibly can, get your information from everywhere, make sure it's right, but absorb yourself like a sponge in all of the information that's out there. There's so much out there as well. Good stuff. Read the good stuff, absorb it, and yeah, do your homework. I sound like such a mum, like a grandma. I'm so sorry. I'm lecturing.
You're a mum. I don't think you're a grandma yet.
No, thank goodness.
That is probably one of the coolest notebooks I think I've ever seen. Nathalie, how about you, especially with kind of setting up Spinal Track as well?
So I'll talk about Spinal Track and my racing. So I think I went into racing not openly confident, but like quietly confident, and I didn't have much to back it up. So when I did my first race at Brands Hatch, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do my first race. That's all that matters. But then I was like, secretly, what if I win this? And it was just a stupid thing to have even thought. And, I finished, what did I finish? 14th out of 21 drivers, which was, it was a decent result for someone who had zero experience against very accomplished racers. But I think that naivety of I could actually be really good having no experience against people that are hugely experienced was gonna come back to bite me in the bum, which it did in, I think it was race 3 or 4, where or it might have been my second season. Anyway, at some point, someone said something to me, one of the male drivers, that just completely destroyed my confidence, because the confidence I had was so shallow or brittle. So I think if you're going into racing, I think be realistic with it and don't expect a lot to happen straight away. Just build your skill set up. Like Jennie said, and Nicki and Ariana, you've got to, it's the same whatever you do in life, whether it's presenting, whether it's racing, whatever aspect of motorsport you go into, you have to have the credentials and the confidence that's based on life experience within the sport. So I think if I did anything differently, it would be to really have a chat with myself to say, don't expect anything, just go and race, get the seat time, get the know-how and speak to people and just build that confidence up based on your results, or even just your personal results. It doesn't matter where you finish along the field, just as long as you do your best on that given day, that's all that matters, and that's the confidence that you can build. With Spinal Track, that didn't even happen in a pragmatic way. It was just, it was really organic the way that charity, or our charity, was started, because like I said, I was having all these messages from people saying, how can we do what you're doing? And my husband and I had bought a Mark V Golf from another disabled person that was fitted with hand controls, and he'd spent so much money on it. It was such a gift. And we bought it for our own personal kind of track toy. It was a front wheel drive, so if it was raining, we could just go and have some fun and not worry. And we sat around in my flat in London, and we just said, we've got all these people asking for something. We've got a car that would be suitable. Why don't we make something? So for the first 6 months, we ran out of our own pocket and just went on track days. We created a kind of template and took some of my friends from wheelchair rugby on our first day to kind of go, give us some feedback, tell me what you think, tell me what we need to change or any improvements. And then we just started running at Silverstone. The first meeting we had kind of officially with anyone outside of Spinal Track to ask for support was with someone at Silverstone to ask them if they could help us in any way. And he loved what we were doing and said, I'll give you a free place on all of our track days of the season. And that was a real boost for us. So we were like, right, we can do this, but we had no money coming in. So it got to about 6 months in and we were like, we can't afford to just keep funding this. And then someone donated £1,000, another person donated £3,000, and we were like, wow, we can keep going. And then Stanley Black & Decker contacted us through Facebook because we were looking for a second car, and they said, can we give you a proper sponsorship deal? So I think if I'd done it again, I'd do it differently again, because we were so lucky with Stanley Black & Decker giving us so much in the beginning and really not asking for a lot back. We didn't have the experience of going out and asking for support. Apart from Silverstone, we hadn't gone to anyone else. So when that contract ended 2 or 3 years ago, we were like, we don't know how to actually go and ask for sponsorship because we've never had to do it. So bit of a late learning curve with Spinal Track, I think, and we're still learning from that now. But no one ever does things perfectly the first time around, especially when they're so alien. I mean, I've never started a charity before, or raced cars before I started. So yeah, I think if you can be as prepared as possible by seeking advice from other people, that's probably my biggest tip for doing either of those things.
And in that exact same way, this webinar is, a source of advice for people watching, which is great. Ariana, how about you? Because as you kind of already touched on, you sort of went in right at the pinnacle of motorsport. And was there anything that you would maybe do differently?
Do you know what? I don't think I would actually do anything differently, because I've loved the journey I've had. It's been incredible. And like I said, it's been a steep learning curve, but it's been one that I've been happy to experience. That doesn't change the fact that I would echo what everyone else has said and what I initially said, that I think it is maybe a safer route to work your way up and build the experience, but everyone's journey is their own. I don't think I would change anything drastic, but I just think I would really emphasize the importance of just being yourself. I think when I came into the sport initially, because of the fact that I was coming in straight into F1, I was a woman, I'm a woman of color as well. I kind of was I wasn't shy. And if anyone I worked with heard me saying that, they'd be like, what on earth are you talking about? But you sort of subconsciously try to fit into a mold, even though there's not that many molds to fit into when you're a woman in motorsport, and there were no molds to fit into as a woman of colour in motorsport. And I think that kind of made me feel less comfortable, because obviously I wasn't being myself. And it wasn't until I had a few chats with different people, and they were like, look, you just need to relax, just calm down, just be yourself. That's why you've been hired. And that takes some time to adjust to, because you don't want to mess up. You like like I said, I didn't have the experience from coming all the way up. So I was very much modeling my career on the women that I looked up to. But you have to be individual. You have to be yourself. You have to be true to yourself, and you have to really be confident in what you're bringing to the table, and also in what you want to bring to the table. Like, I know that the thing that I love is fan engagement, and I love bringing energy to the fans, bringing energy to the crowds. And that's something that is my thing, I guess, which is why I do the fan forums and things. But yeah, I think it can be very easy in this industry to try to model your career too closely to other people's, and that's to your own detriment. And I think especially in this current state where we have this like explosion of content creation and lots of people wanting to be presenters and content creators within the industry, and because, like I said, there's very few people who have kind of paved the way for us, it's easy to just try to replicate what other people have done, but that's not really how it's going to work out. That's not going to get you noticed, because you're not bringing individual, you're not bringing something else to the table. And also on that, I think it's also really important to distinguish what exactly it is you want within the industry. And I say this to everyone I talk to that comes to events or asks me for advice. Presenting and broadcasting is not the same as content creation. It's not the same as journalism. They are different channels. There are crossovers, but I could never be a content creator, and it's not completely interchangeable skills. So a lot of people come up to me and ask for advice, and I'm like, okay, do you want to be a presenter or do you want to be a content creator? And often they think that the two roles are the same, and they're completely not. Like Nicki said, some of the things you're dealing with when you're on camera, when you're doing broadcast, you would just never experience doing content creation. Like, there's this whole thing behind the scenes, this whole operation, this whole production to bring you television. So just really be sure of what it is you're trying to achieve, because it really changes the way you need to approach things.
Very good advice. Nicki, finally coming to you.
What is the question again?
That's okay. If you could change anything about the start of your journey.
Yeah, I thought it was that. I thought, yeah, I hadn't answered it. Okay. I don't, yeah, again, I think, you never want to change anything, because, you change one little thing and it could alter the whole journey. I think, similar to what Ariana was been saying, I still sometimes feel like I can't be myself. At the beginning, particularly, you need to prove yourself and prove that you have that knowledge. Jennie's right. You have to know everything and even more, because you can't be if you're the one that doesn't know the fact or the figure or what happened at that race, everyone will know. Because if the bloke, the guys don't remember, they'll forget about it. But if you've forgotten as a woman, everyone will pay attention to that. So yeah, I think, and I was aware of that very much so. So it's been a huge, and still do, spend a huge amount of time researching. But because of that, I would then always try and weave in to questions as a journalist all of this information that I knew. But that's not your role at that point in time. Your role is to just ask a question, not to show off to the world that, guys, I learnt my notes. This is everything I know. And, consequently, I was getting feedback that it's like, Nicki, your questions here, you need to just kind of get to the point here. We know the stuff. You don't have anything to prove. But I still felt that I did. And so, yeah, I would, and it took me a long time to get confident with that. It took me probably a couple of years to actually finally go, okay, just ask the goddamn question, get to the point. And I still feel now, total, I'm sure as of the world, you probably look at us and think, oh, we're all so confident, we're on screen, we're giving it all, we're posting these lovely photos at these wonderful events. Doing the red carpet at the F1 launch was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I wore this dress that was just, I also had complete fake confidence failure leaving the house because it was a short-ish dress. It wasn't revealing, but it was kind of fashiony, and I kind of knew the vibe of what everyone else would be going for, but I had this dress, so I thought, well, I might as well wear it because I don't have anything else. And I felt like I if it had been at a fashion event, I would have just gone and rocked it. But because it was a motorsport event, I felt that people would judge me for wearing something that maybe isn't appropriate in the motorsport scene, because ultimately everyone is in a suit or trousers and a jacket. But I did it, I wore it, and I really liked wearing it, and I had lots of lovely positive comments. But it does.
And you looked fantastic. You looked amazing.
You did an amazing job at the launch as well. I mean, that must have been terrifying, going out to 80,000 people.
Yeah, it was something. It was quite something.
Yeah, special. You're a pro at that, so. But yeah, so I think also, you know, what you see on social, don't believe it, you know, and if you are struggling with confidence, you've just got to find it from within and just keep going.
I think that's a really interesting point, Nicki, because kind of, as you said, we sort of look at all of you as established and have come through and know what you're doing as you, well, you know what you're doing, but as very confident. And it's easy to forget that you are all real people and everybody has their own struggles and their own insecurities and things. So really important to have heard that. Okay, we're going to move on to talk about the reason we're all here, which is to celebrate inclusion and also International Women's Day. Of course, that is this Saturday, the 8th of March. And I kind of want to ask you about the theme of International Women's Day. So the theme this year is accelerating action. And I would love to know what you are all doing to accelerate action, or what this means to you. Jennie, we're going to come to you.
Hang on, I've gone with the old unmute mute thing. Yeah, I'm assuming that was me. Sorry, my computer just froze a little bit there. So what am I going to do? This is a really good question, because I haven't really, I've got so much on my plate right now that I haven't given it as much thought as I know I should. And it always creeps up on me, International Women's Day. And I think the amount of work we all do within our own arenas, you kind of forget that sometimes there's a larger mission going on. And I'm very aware of my own position within motorsport, but sometimes, as Nicki says, I lack the confidence to even believe in that position, and I have absolute imposter syndrome all the time. And for someone that's worked in motorsport for so long, I shouldn't be there, but I still feel like the little girl I was when I was 15, looking at motor racing tracks and thinking, oh, that sounds good. So what will I do? I will probably do something on Instagram, and probably also on Twitter, because I'm like that generation that's still clinging on to X and thinking, oh, maybe there's a few followers left. But all I try and do every time I do anything really is thinking about the positive role I can be for other people. And now I'm kind of trying to deal with stroke recovery as well. I have a different side to, I suppose, who I am and what I stand for, and looking at the whole neurodivergent, more disability background that I've found myself in without really any warning. It's been a real eye-opener. If it wasn't hard enough, Nathalie will agree with her, I'm sure, if it wasn't hard enough being a woman in motorsport, having another a thing to fight, and Ariana, you would agree too, I would expect, that you're not just fighting one front, you're fighting many fronts. And Nicki, as a working mum, every day we come to work and we do our best to represent the people that we can. And I'm just talking, and I should stop talking now. I need a producer in my ear, but yeah, it's hard, but I will try and represent my communities, my tribe, as best I can. I haven't thought what I'm going to do yet. Something, hopefully.
I love that, the tribe of representing something bigger. And Nathalie, what about you?
So I'm just going to touch on what Jennie said about having that extra thing, disability, and then I'll go to the question. It's kind of like having that extra thing of being a disabled person in motorsport. You, Jennie, are a woman in motorsport and then a disabled person, whereas I'm the opposite way around. I'm a disabled person in motorsport and then I'm a woman. And that's because I got into motorsport as a disabled person, and my disability is far more tangible than my gender. Whereas you've been in the sport as a female, and then you obviously had your stroke. But the thing about disabilities, it causes physical restrictions as well as the social ones that come with being a woman. So as if we didn't have to fight hard enough with our gender, we then have to fight with the physicality of that as well, with your speech, obviously. And I regard that as a physical thing for you when you're presenting. It's just that added little bit that we have to deal with. But I do believe it makes us stronger, whether we want that challenge or not. That's the outcome for me anyway, and I think you would agree with that as well, Jennie.
Yeah.
But for International Women's Day, do you know what? I never do anything for it. I'll come on events like this, and if people want me to speak at events as part of International Women's Day, I do. I'll engage in that, and I usually have a couple of things on every year. But for me, I'm a woman in motorsport every day. So International Women's Day for me is all the time. So I don't feel the need to publish anything on social media on International Women's Day. And I feel like I do enough just being present and sharing my story 365 days a year that I almost don't want to diminish what I do through the rest of the year by saying this is the only day that you need to pay attention to me. So I'm not anti International Women's Day at all. I think it's a great tool for us to publicize what we do, but I just feel for me personally that International Women's Day should be represented all the time.
Sure, yeah. Nicki, moving on to you.
So I completely agree with Nathalie there. It's just another day, really, isn't it? Like, we are celebrating each other and supporting each other on a day-to-day basis, and it's an awesome community to be part of. Okay, there are things that work against us, but there are also things massively in our favor, and there is just a lovely, open, welcome community. And if you haven't found that yet, then maybe you've been looking in the wrong places, because it is out there, obviously this being one of them. So I am actually on International Women's Day, I am on another panel, and we are discussing sort of the main theme for this year, accelerated action. I don't actually know who else is on the panel though, but it's not motorsport led, so I'll probably just be talking about you guys, to be honest. I'll be talking about this moment and what we're doing at the moment in the world of motorsport, because I think they're from different sports and different entertainment, so I'll be able to enlighten them on the world that we live in. But Jennie, it was funny, as you were saying, Nicki, working mother, literally I had two children like screaming and one like, "Mommy!" and I was like, yes. Can't really, I should be thankful for them, which I am, but they are a challenge at times.
I think every working mother is always paranoid of reenacting the moment where in lockdown the kid comes in and does behind the news report and all hell breaks loose behind it. And I mean, I've been in that situation too, where my daughter's come in, I'm on air and she's gone, "Mommy, this doesn't taste very good." I'm like, "Yeah, but not now." "Yeah, that's fine, but not now." So yeah, it's challenging, but lovely. We love it.
Yeah, and actually that was hard, leaving work to have kids, because there's no like, you know, your management consultancy role, Ariana, I'm sure you would have had a lovely, you know, 6 months of maternity. Off you go. Your job will be here when you get back, and nothing will have changed. We don't get that. And often you come back and things have changed. So I was back to work when the kids were like 6 weeks old, because I was so terrified of losing my job, which is one of the
I was exactly the same. I was 7 weeks, I think, when I went to my first F1 race after having Isabel.
Wow.
I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. I didn't know what was going on at the time. I was like not lucid. I was just like, I must go back to work. It's the end of the championship, but I must. There's a fear when you're a freelance presenter. I think when you're any presenter or in any industry, there's a fear that you can't take a break. Having a stroke is a really good example of, actually, I did take a break, and the community is much more supportive now than it's ever been. And, you know, I would cover for Nicki, I'm sure she would cover for me. And I don't feel that fear, because we're there for each other and we will support each other without that feeling of, oh, I've just got a knife in my back.
Yeah.
But I think that has changed over time, which is good. But it's still, you know, in certain roles, it's still a worry, unfortunately.
And then last but not least, Ariana, and then I think we'll be all out of time. It's gone very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what everyone else has said. It's not, I mean, I'm glad that International Women's Day is recognised, but it's not something that I go out of my way to do something for. I'm having actually a conversation with Jennie from Girls on Track UK tomorrow to talk about some little projects that we might be able to work on throughout the year. So yeah, I think I'll just continue kind of doing what I'm doing. I'll probably do into social media posts like Jennie said, but it's not really something that I've got a big plan behind the scenes for. I spend a lot of time anyway trying to reply to as many people as possible on social media when they ask for advice and when they ask for tips and things like that. That's something that's really important to me on a day-to-day. And I think that is kind of more important and has more impact than me trying to like pull something out of the bag for Saturday, which definitely won't happen. So I'm not even going to try and pretend that it will. But yeah, so that's all. I know there's a few questions that have come in as well, so I'm happy to like quickly whiz through them with the others before we wrap if people want to. But I don't want to ramble on about what I'm not doing for International Women's Day.
I'm going to take a photo so we've all got something to post.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Well, on that note, I think we are just about out of time. We've already just coming up to 7:30. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing all of your stories and all of your knowledge and advice, and also for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know all of you are busy preparing for seasons, and it's been incredible to have you with us. Also, a massive thank you to all of our participants for joining us tonight, and of course Girls on Track UK and Motorsport UK for making this webinar possible. If you have enjoyed our webinar tonight, make sure you go and watch it back. It will be available to watch back. And if you aren't already a member of the Girls on Track UK community, it's totally free to join. And we now have over 10,000 members, and we would love to welcome you to join us. The link to sign up and join and the mailing list will be going in the chat now. One more massive thank you to our panelists. Thank you all so much for having this conversation with me tonight. It's been amazing, and I wish you a lovely evening and all the best for the season ahead.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you everyone that's joined. It's lovely to do this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.